Hello, this is the video for Chapter 14, Section 1 on circulation and respiration. It is from pages 552 to 561 in your textbook. I'm Mrs. Erling, and here with me today are Mr. Knox and Mrs. Kim. So as we get started, think about what is the function or purpose of a transportation system. So many of us travel on freeways all the time, like the 91 or the 15. So pause the video, think about the purpose or function. Hopefully you pause the video. Maybe you came up with something like it helps us travel back and forth between places, to work and home, or school and home, or grandma's house and home. Well, the function of the cardiovascular system, you can think of it like a transportation system because the blood is traveling back and forth throughout your body. We can break down the word cardiovascular into cardio, which means heart, and vascular, which means blood vessels. Your cardiovascular system delivers needed materials to your body. What type of materials? Well, we need oxygen, and the cardiovascular system circulates it from our lungs to our body. And every time you use your muscles, they need oxygen, right? So after you run a mile, you're going to breathe a lot heavier because you need more oxygen in your body. The cardiovascular system also helps us to transport glucose, which the cells of our bodies need for energy. Another function of the cardiovascular system is that it removes waste products, such as carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide forms in the body when the body breaks down glucose, which we use for energy. And the cardiovascular system takes that carbon dioxide and moves it to your lungs, and every time you exhale or breathe out, you're getting rid of carbon dioxide. It also helps us to fight disease by transporting cells that specifically fight infection and diseases like coughing from a cold or the flu or measles. The heart is a hollow muscular organ that pumps blood throughout the body, and it is about the size of your fist. It has two upper chambers called atriums, and we can see the atriums on the picture. Here's your right atrium and here's your left atrium. Now think about this. It says right atrium, and you might be thinking, well, that's on the left side. But if you were looking at a person, it would actually be on the right side of their body. So imagine a person behind that heart. Two upper chambers called the atriums. So we talked about how those receive blood into the heart. Now there's also two lower chambers, which are called ventricles. We have the right ventricle and the left ventricles, and these pump blood out of the heart. The atria, which is plural for atrium, the atria are separated from the ventricles by something called valves. Valves are flaps of tissue that prevent blood from flowing backward. Now some people have valves that leak. Some of the blood goes back into those other parts of the heart, and when that happens, that's called mitral valve prolapse. But for the most part, your heart is able to separate the atria from the ventricles by these valves. So pause and think about this question. From the illustration, can you tell which chambers of the heart contain oxygen-rich blood? If you paused the video and thought about this question, you might have said, well, the red part, so the left atrium and the left ventricle, and those are the oxygen-rich parts of the heart.
Okay, here's an actual photograph of a heart valve, and the one on the left is closed and the one on the right is open. So as soon as blood rushes through, the valve will shut so the blood, it does not go back up the wrong way. Pretty neat picture. Okay, so your blood has 3 different types of blood vessels. Your cardiovascular system has 3 different types of blood vessels. Arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. They both start with the letter A, so you can remember it that way. Arteries away. Say it with me, everybody. Arteries away. Okay, and then we have veins. Veins bring blood to the heart. It goes back to the heart. And then capillaries are in between the arteries and veins, and you have capillaries all throughout your body where there are cells, and they're so thin that's where the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange occurs. Okay, let's talk about the path of blood throughout your body. Is this working?
Yeah, sure.
Can't see it. Oi! Okay, so let's start at the body. At the body, the blood gave away all of the oxygen and is coming back to the heart with a lot of carbon dioxide. Here, we have blood coming in from the upper body, and here from the lower body. And where does it go first? It goes to the right atrium. Then, blood is pushed down to the right ventricle. The valve will shut, and then the right ventricle will push blood out of the heart and send it somewhere where they can pick up more oxygen. Where would that be? The lungs. So it's going to go up to the lungs, and there you have 2 lungs, so actually there's going to be another one going this way. And then there in the lungs, blood will drop off carbon dioxide and pick up more oxygen. It's like a little train station. Then, instead of going directly to the body, it's going to come back to the heart. It's going to enter through the left atrium, and now it's oxygen rich, it's bright red. And then it's going to be pushed down to the left ventricle, and left ventricle actually has a really tough job because it has to push blood to all the different parts of the body. It has to give a really big push, sending it to your upper body, all the way to your brain, all the way down to your feet, your toes, your legs, fingertips. And so the left side of your heart works a lot harder than the right side. Why do you think the aorta is the largest artery in your body? Well, let's look at the aorta. It's located right here. And blood coming out of the heart goes through the aorta. It has to be really strong to withstand the pressure that the left ventricle puts on it so that blood can go to all the different parts of your body. And by the way, this side is blue because they say that when blood is oxygen poor, it's dark reddish color, almost purplish color, and then when it comes in contact with oxygen, it turns bright red. So we see the 2 different colors. This is oxygen poor, this side is oxygen rich.
Away!
Arteries away!
Go! All right, I didn't do that just to be mean. I did it to show that the blood pushes, as the heart beats, the blood pushes the blood next to it. So Emmy, away. Okay, think of arteries. Arteries push blood away from the heart. Now, because the heart is a very, very strong muscle, and each time it squishes, lots of blood leaves the heart, and it goes into this artery right here. And because lots of blood squishes, the artery wall has to actually expand to allow that gush of blood through. This is the reason why the artery wall is very thick, because if it was thin and that gush of blood came through, the artery would rip open and you would bleed on the inside. This is what happens when people have strokes. This happens in the brain, and obviously this is not a good thing, because if blood's leaking out, it's not getting to the vital spots. So as the heart pumps, there's this gush of blood that goes into the artery, and then the artery expands, and you guys can feel that as a pulse. And if you feel on the wrist, this is one of the main spots where people feel for their pulse. It's kind of on the wrist, it's kind of on the thumb side right here. If you feel carefully, you guys can feel that bump, bump, bump of the artery. And each time you feel that bump, that's a gush of blood going through the artery. Another famous spot people feel is just under the chin, right on the neck, either side of the neck. So, arteries take blood away from the heart. It has to be strong to allow that gush of blood. So it has to be very thick, and you guys can see how thick it is. All right. Arteries take blood to the capillaries. Okay. Your capillaries are very, very thin, and this is where oxygen exchange takes place. As blood comes from the heart, it comes down and goes into these capillaries. And these capillaries are extremely thin. They only allow one red blood cell through at a time. So you got these tiny red blood cells going through, and at this time they pass off oxygen to the cells and they get carbon dioxide. These body cells, like your muscle cells, your skin cells, now have lots of carbon dioxide. They need the oxygen, so it's the blood that passes the oxygen, and these body cells give the carbon dioxide to these cells. And the capillaries have to be extremely thin to allow for this exchange to take place. If you look at your friend's eyes, well, you can't really, probably your parents' eyes, or my eyes, I'll come closely. If you look at my eyes, you guys can see the red capillaries in my eyes. I don't know if you can see that or not, but look at your parents' eyes, look at your eyes.
I hope you're not going to have nightmares tonight.
But you'll see the capillaries in the eyeball. The sclera is what's called the white part of the eye, but you guys can see the red capillaries inside my eyes. And capillaries, very thin. This is where oxygen and waste and carbon dioxide get exchanged. Okay, this is where things get passed into the body and passed into the blood. These capillaries, and they're located everywhere in your body. Capillaries are found everywhere. Then, after the capillaries, you guys can see it. The blood goes into the veins right here, and this is our next thing we're going to talk about as it heads back to the heart. So, veins. Veins carry blood back to the heart. Now, because it carries back to the heart, blood back to the heart, the blood pressure in veins is not as high, so these walls are not quite as thick. They're a lot thinner, and they have these valves in them. And as blood goes through this valve, with each little heartbeat, imagine this blood being pushed up. It will want to come back, but this valve stops it. So it's trapped right here until the next heartbeat, then it goes up. So veins carry blood very low in oxygen, and the oxygen kind of wants to pool down with gravity. And here's an activity that you can do to show you guys that the veins do pool blood. If you guys stand with your arms, one arm up, one arm down, for about a minute or so, you will first of all notice that the arm hanging down feels a little heavier. It feels like it's filling with blood, and the arm up here is not. So I know I've only done it for 30 seconds, but if you look at my two hands, you guys can see there's a difference in color. Okay, it's because the blood has pooled into the hand that was below my heart. So, also, what's kind of neat, but kind of stinks in a way, is if you've ever given blood, sometimes the nurse sticks you with a needle into the arm, but accidentally sticks you where there's this valve, and this valve gets sucked up in the needle, and she's got to move this needle around in order to draw blood. But anyway, veins. Veins carry blood low in oxygen, and they carry it back to the heart. I should say most veins carry blood low in oxygen, and they carry it back to the heart. There's the pulmonary vein, which carries it high in oxygen. That's the exception to the rule. But mainly veins carry blood low in oxygen and blood that's low in pressure. So you have the three things. You have arteries away, capillaries, and you have veins. Now, here's something to think about for the test. Okay, this will be on an upcoming test. So make sure you guys know this. You guys are going to have to describe the flow of blood through the body, and make sure you know use the words heart, veins, arteries, capillaries, lungs, the body, right atrium, ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. Use those words when you describe the flow of blood through the body.
Mr. Knox away. Off, but I didn't see the little
Discard. Mr. Knox away.